Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to go through something extremely personal to me. One second. Just doing a bit of active release. A few months ago I did Ironman Cork, and that left me with some deep lessons, but none better than how to do a marathon with hypothermia. First of all, I'd like to apologise for any inappropriateness for the compression pants that I'm wearing. I'm wearing these because I'm currently recovering from a pretty tough bike session I did earlier this morning. So it's lots of compression. These are designed to increase my blood flow, lots of foam rolling, and lots of fun stuff like stretching, which we'll certainly go into in future videos. So I flew out to Ironman Cork about 5 days before the event, firstly staying in Cork town before moving into the town of Jarl. I think it's pronounced Jarl, but in any case, that's where the Ironman is held. But on getting there, I was very pleased by the hospitality of the people. It was some of the best people I've ever met, hands down. The thing that initially scared me was the temperature of the water. I heard it was 11 degrees or 12 degrees or something like this, and I thought to myself, it's going to be a challenge. I don't normally operate well under cold conditions, and I thought it may have been a mistake, but I should press on with it anyway. The first time I came into contact with the cold was in my practice swim. There were loads of other triathletes there testing out the water. A lot of these people were from America or hot countries where they haven't even seen cold water before. When I jumped in, even though I was pretty acclimatized to the cold water in the UK, it was a shock and it was very uncomfortable. I saw other people there who were really doing poorly because of the cold water, and I was immediately filled with a sense of dread about what the event would be like. Straight after, my initial reaction was to go and get a skull cap from the swim store, which the owner told me that they were quickly running out of as more and more Ironman athletes were buying these. You saw people in the store getting skull caps, getting gloves for swimming, even people getting boots for it, just so that they could stay warm. Now, unfortunately, the weather forecast on the day wasn't the best either. All the days leading up to the Ironman were pretty sunny. Temperatures about 20, 21 degrees, there around, and pretty low wind speeds. But luck would have it that on the day of the Ironman, it would be a torrential storm. I remember first getting to transition that morning, having woken up about 2 AM, had breakfast, gone down. I went with a group of people who I travelled out with, and I remember going into transition and seeing these huge waves come crashing in with freezing water whilst it was raining relentlessly. And I thought to myself, if someone's going in that water, it's not going to be pretty for any of us. But in any case, I had my wetsuit on, I was ready to go. Luckily for me and for a lot of the people there, I suspect, it announced that they cancelled the swim, which I think was a sensible thing at the time, because it was very rough water, it was very, very cold. They handle it especially well, considering it was such a short notice cancellation, and they managed to get everyone organised to do a time trial bike start. The first lap of the bike course was very good. It was undulating, it was very tough, but I'd done a lot of training going into that, up to 22 hours a week. So I was in tip-top fit condition, able to do pretty much anything on a bike. And I was really doing well. Got around the first lap. At the end of the laps, they had this very steep hill. They called it Windmill Hill. If anyone wants to go and do Ironman Cork next year, I recommend you check out Windmill Hill before you do the event. But in any case, got round that, went up Windmill Hill, did okay there. It was a great atmosphere, got round, and we started going on the second lap. And that's when I began to notice the cold and the wet. I was getting soaked through the fibres, which initially it felt okay because I didn't get that much water on me, but being out there for a long time, I was getting really, really wet. It got to about 125 kilometres, and at that point there's a long downhill. It takes about 2.5 minutes to descend, and you go very, very fast. And as I was going downhill, I started shivering, and I couldn't stop shivering. On the next uphill, I still couldn't stop shivering. And I realised I probably got hypothermia. So anyway, I said to myself, okay, there's 50k to go, so I'm going to push through this. And initially it was a bit of a battle getting going, and I started to slow down. I was sapping energy, and I was taking as much as I possibly could in terms of gels, and bars, and whatever they offered. I was just shivering, I couldn't stop shivering. I remember I got to about 160 kilometres, and there was only 20 kilometres to go, but those were the longest 20 kilometres I've ever done. And at that point, I had to stop for a second on the side of the road. And there was one lady, and we were actually going at the same sort of pace. She slowed down at the same rate. I think she was suffering the same as I was. And it was one of those things, if you've done one of these races before, you'll know what I'm talking about, where you're overtaking the other person and they overtake you and then you overtake them and so on. And she had stopped as well. I stopped and she stopped right behind me. And I remember hearing her say, she said, I've never DNF'd a race before. I think I'm going to DNF this one. And at that point I was beyond thinking. I couldn't think straight at all. All I knew is that I had to get salts into my body or I was wasted. And luckily, in my special needs bag, which I went to along the bike course, I packed salt tablets, and they're in my back pocket. And I remember taking them out and shivering like this, and then opening up my water bottle, and then putting the salt in and drinking as much as possible. And after about a minute or two, I felt a little bit better. I thought the 20k left is manageable. So I hopped back on the bike. I pedalled it out as much as possible. It wasn't pretty, but I eventually got around. By this point, I wasn't coherent, and you could see that when I entered into transition 2. I put my bike away, still shivering, went into transition, still shivering. And one of the helpers came up to me, she asked me, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I think I have hypothermia." She said, "Oh, yes you do, you need to go into the warm tent." I was like, "Where's the warm tent?" And she directed me towards this tent. I said to her, "I need some food." And she gave me a pack of biscuits. And I don't normally eat any sugar, I don't eat sweets normally, I don't make it a habit. At that instant, I ate the whole packet in one go. And I was still hungry. I said, "I need crisps." She went and got me some crisps. I went into this warm tent. As soon as I got inside, I was in there with a pack of crisps. I saw 20 or 30 people all in there, all shivering, all with hypothermia. I thought to myself, wow. And there was this heat blaster inside the tent that would turn the heat on only at certain intervals. So what would happen was the heat would come on and I would stop shivering, and then the heat would turn off and I would just start shivering again, even though it wasn't even that cold in the warm tent. I was just at that point, at this stage. I was in the tent and I got talking to different people and things, and obviously at that point a part of you thinks that the race is over. However, I was very determined to go out and do this marathon despite having hypothermia or whatever. And I said to myself, okay, I'm not in a phenomenal state right now, but what I'll do is I'll spend 40 minutes in this tent, recover as much as I possibly can. I know in a terrible state I could do a marathon in just over 4 hours, so I'll go out and do the marathon. I've got plenty of time to do it. So I sat there in this warm tent trying to warm up. The real challenge was to will yourself to get out of the tent. And I remember I tried it at one point. So I went out for a second, and it was so cold I started shivering. I went straight back in. I thought, Jesus Christ, how am I going to do this? So I say to myself, okay, I'm definitely going to do this, because there's no way that I'm going to drop out of this race in a bloody tent. Once I made that decision, it was very simple for me. I waited 10 minutes. I told one of the guys, tell me when I need to go in 10 minutes. He came in, he said, if you're doing the marathon, go now. I said, okay. I went out, started running. I was in terrible shape. I did the first few steps. I thought, Jesus, I've got another 26 miles to go. You know. I say to myself, I'm going to run from aid station to aid station. So I'm really running 2.5 kilometer stretches at a time, which is a lot easier than running 26 miles. So I got to the first aid station, and the first thing I took on was salt. So I grabbed a couple of crisps, had some water, and carried on running. And then I went through to the second aid station. I had some stomach problems there, so I had to stop there for a while. I had to use the portaloo there, and I remember I was sat there in the toilet. I said to myself, I was really in a terrible state. I was having real stomach issues, and I still had hypothermia, and I said to myself, Oz, you need to get your shit together. So I said, what's gonna derail my efforts here? So the first thing is I could overheat, which sounds crazy, but I was wearing loads of layers. I was still wearing my cycling layers. And I know that when I'm running, my body temperature is going to increase. So the first thing I needed to do was to strip layers, even if it was uncomfortable at the beginning, because otherwise I was going to overheat and I could get some serious exhaustion. The second thing I said to myself was, I need more salts on board, because I wasn't thinking straight. The third thing, I need to hydrate. So I stripped my layers, I left them off at the special needs bag place, and I quickly took on some salt, some food from the aid station, and took some water on board. And the first couple of miles were pretty tough, and after that I started feeling a bit better and a bit better. I still felt terrible, but a lot better than I was before, and at least shivering had stopped. So I was running, and I would take intermittent breaks at these aid stations where I just walk, I gather my thoughts so I can carry on. At this point I realised it's not about getting a time, it's about simply finishing what I started. And I would say this is one of the most important lessons I learned from it. And I continued running. Other people had finished at this point, so I was still going around. There's still a fair few people out on the course though, and it seemed like I was running for an eternity. And the third lap felt like the longest. Once I was on the fourth lap, I felt good. I felt a bit stronger. I started running better. I felt my old running legs coming back to me from that huge shock that my body was under, but I was still exhausted. And there were lots of hills on this course too. And I remember going down this last straight, and it's up a hill, and I was beyond exhaustion at this point, running along, and I could barely stand up properly. But I thought I need to run strong. My motto is always to finish strong. So I ran as hard as I could through the line, and I could not support myself, immediately collapsed the line. And I remember all these medical staff came and grabbed me and asked, "Are you okay?" They thought I was dying or something. I certainly felt that way. And I quickly got some food on board and got my head together. In terms of lessons I took from that, apart from the lesson of coming prepared and knowing what course you're up against, which is obviously the first point of error in what I'd done. I did an Ironman course that no one really knew anything about, and in reality the most important thing in these things is that you know what you're up against every time. If you're going for a time, that is, if you're going just to finish or something else, then that's completely fine. The second learning point from that, and the things I was especially proud of, was having the mental toughness to go into that tent and get out of it. And I think that the key behind that is to make a decision in your mind about what you're going to do and cut off all other options. In that instance, there was the objective decision to stay in the tent or not. I had completely cut that option off because I had to, because it was so easy for me to stay inside there. And I was determined also to finish what I'd started, which I think is an important motto that I've taken from that and that I now use in the rest of my life. I believe that if you go through life finishing the things that you start, the things that at least that are worth finishing, then you're going to do extremely well. The third lesson I took from it was to immediately see what the things that are going to block you are and rectify them as quickly as possible in the swiftest way that you can possibly do, so that's feasible to you. And that was that point where I was in this Portaloo, everything had gone wrong, and I said to myself, I need to get my shit together. And then I decided, okay, I need to strip down, I need my salts, I need some water. And through these things, and taking it aid station by aid station, so one small step at a time, I managed to complete a huge distance. The focus on completing a huge distance shouldn't be on the distance itself and how long you have left, but on very short-term goals. And this is where I believe short-term goals can really pay dividends. And that's how you can do a marathon when you're in a really terrible state. It's a distance that seems extremely long, even to run on its own. Even for me now, it's extremely long. But if you're taking it one small step at a time, it is relatively manageable. But all in all, Cork was a fantastic time. There were great lessons taken from that. I would definitely do it again if I had the chance. I'd have done it all the same, maybe change a few things, I might have brought a waterproof or something. And I would highly recommend that Ironman for anyone. The most important thing is those lessons that I've taken from it. Now, if you want a free guide to how to do a marathon, how to train for a marathon, that'll be coming in my future videos. And for more great videos, top information, and obviously unreal fun, click and subscribe now. See you next time. Oh, you're still here. It's over. Go home. Oh, you were expecting another clip of unreal fun. Well, we just don't have the production budget. What were you expecting? A clip of me chasing Guilford the goat on my bike? Go home, go. But I can tell you one thing, and it's a bit of a secret. I'm getting into the nutrition game. TrainHeatEat.com. Look it up.